All right. Hey.
Be all right.
Nice meeting you finally.
Nice meeting you finally too.
Take care, everybody.
Okay, see you later. Merry Christmas.
Did you have this back on?
Yes, I did.
We're back on. Awesome. So whenever you start.
Yeah. I move to come out of executive session, and the time is 7:20.
I'll second.
Is there a second? Okay, discussion. Roll call, Ms. Marion?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes, and for the record, 3 trustees, myself, Rosalind McKee Flax, Jeff Johnson, Mark Evans, Trustee Evans and Trustee Johnson, and also legal counsel Pat Kesson were in executive session.
You left off right at new business.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Keeping me on track there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move down to new business. I move to authorize myself, Rosalind McKee, to sign the form for DTE 24 Tax Incentive Program application for real estate property tax exemptions and remission as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion, please. That's that form you had pulled out before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, is this for a previously approved TIF on that property? This is not a new TIF, correct?
No.
This is just to activate it on the rolls.
Yes. Roll call, Ms. Marion?
Mr. Evans? Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Alrighty, I'll move over to the zoning commission. These are appointments for 2 different boards. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Johnson. Do you want to take over the zoning commission appointments? We got several applications in the total of 4. Mr. Mr. Zacher and Mr. Albright and Mr. Kelly and Mr. Nicholson were the applicants.
Well, for the record, this wasn't published. This wasn't posted. So I think we should be putting this out there. You're considering applications from people that maybe have just happened to see it on the agenda, but this was never released, and this is another reason why putting the agenda out earlier. So, I mean, we've got a lot of people in the township wanting to apply, but even for those that are being reappointed, I think we should have executive sessions to talk to them, see how it's going, see if they've been a good fit, and move forward properly. So I don't understand this just shoving stuff through.
Have you spoken to any of these gentlemen that you mentioned, Mr. Evans, that had previously been on the boards that you said asked them how it was going? You're talking Mr. Adam, Kelly, and then also Mr. Eric Nichols. Have you spoken to them at all? Had any conversations with them?
Well, yes, but not in the full aspect of the board appointing in this matter. But why aren't we being more transparent and putting it out there? And Mr. Kelly's request was early in, I think, this month, December, maybe November. Why wait to the last minute? Again, this is common practice for this board leadership, but it's not proper. We hear from residents time and time again.
You said wait till the last minute for what? I'm sorry, I missed that part. We wait till the last minute
for board appointments and don't even advertise them.
I didn't understand when you said we waited till the last minute about Mr.
Because
Kelly.
their term ends the 31st of this year.
Sure, but you're saying we waited till the last minute? No.
Yes, this is our last regular meeting.
Yes, for the year.
So
you're
that is
absolutely correct.
It is not literally the last minute, but figuratively the last minute. So I believe that this should be tabled. Again, bring them in to discuss and
You
advertise.
know what, I'm gonna make a motion that we appoint Adam Kelly, reappoint Adam Kelly to the Board of Zoning Commission. He's done a fine job there in his short time there.
You're in the middle of a motion.
So you need a second. I'll second.
Now you can have discussion.
I think he's done a good job there in his short time there. He applied back, he's back on the board.
Well, I do too, but again, it's the process. When you have standards, you have processes that you go through, and you don't. Adam's a great guy. He asks questions on the board. I believe he's an asset on that board.
I did too.
But again, it's being transparent to the residents, and that his initial appointment was not posted or advertised. Ms. McKee just appointed him. Again, good quality person, but it's the process that is flawed and improper. So that's what I'm against.
Yes, ma'am.
For clarification, can you read the term? It's a 5-year term.
Oh, yes, it's a 5-year term.
5-year term.
January.
Go ahead.
So yeah, it is a 5-year term.
Starting January 1, right?
2024. 2024 to December 31st, 2026. 28, I'm sorry.
You said December.
January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2028.
And the only reason I'll be against this is because of the improper procedure. We need to do better, and I think we will soon.
Roll call.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. And that was for the Board of Zoning Appeal.
Not zoning commission.
I'm sorry, Commission. Yeah. That's appeal.
No, that's, he's the zoning
That's a
commission.
commission.
Oh, Commission, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Now for zoning, I'd like to make a motion, move to appoint Eric Nichols to be reappointed to the Board of Zoning. Appeals Board, yes, the Appeals Board, I'm sorry. With term starting January 1, 2024 to December 31st, 2028.
Okay, I'll second. So we're on discussion, please.
Once again, Jones done a good job on there, and I see there's a not reappointment.
Well, I think we should have had an executive session again. There are decisions made by the Zoning Appeals Board, especially when you take into account the numerous variances for the warehouses given. I am concerned a little bit about that. And again, we should have had the executive session. So for that reason and the improper process, I will vote no.
Roll call, Ms. Barron.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay. We'll move over to the adult use of marijuana. I move resolution 2312-1901. Is that? Okay. Resolution prohibiting the operating of adult use cannabis operators in Etna Township under the Ohio Revised Code 3780.25 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Madam President.
Yes, ma'am, please.
So just for purposes of the people who are here, this resolution is only to control commercial operations. It doesn't have any impact on any personal businesses, just for the commercial operations related to adult use cannabis.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Barron.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Do you have one of these in the phone for us to sign?
And you don't have to sign that one, only Julie does.
You got it. No, it's trustee. Yeah. Oh, you have to do your part. Okay.
That's
Just
just
put our
your
name
vote,
in.
that's
Okay.
just your vote.
I see it.
Julie's gonna
All right.
sign it.
I'll stick this in. Well,
But I'm gonna go update that with you guys.
Okay, we'll move over to old business, which is AMH easement Royals 2 project. Turn the meeting over to Trustee Evans.
Why are you turning this over to me?
Because you were discussing this with the AMH in regards to the easement over there.
Okay.
Would you like to come up and present, please?
It makes no sense, but all right.
Thank you. Yeah, you were working with me, remember? Let's go to the park and.
I'm not gonna point that directly, I'm just a little bit, that's good right there.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Joe Pappas, and I'm representing EMH. I'm here tonight requesting approval of the drainage easement for Royals Phase 2.
I honestly don't know why I should turn it over to me, because I've been kept out of any communications with anything regarding this. I do have my concerns about, again, still the drainage easement on the park land, when we don't even have the center section of our park secured, so we might have even less land. I do see that some wetlands. I'd like to hear from Linda Nicodemus regarding the wetlands and kind of that area. Maybe we can do that. So, is that okay with the board?
Yeah, absolutely. We should hear
Okay,
from that.
Linda.
But Ms. Hanson, did you have something that you want to present?
I just wanted to say, I don't know if Mr. Evans doesn't receive my emails because information is processed and forwarded along. And this is a process that we've now been going through for, I think, the 3rd trustee meeting. So, all of the available information has been provided to everyone.
Sending information is different than working together for it, and to turn it over to me makes no sense when I haven't
If you would ever
been
want to
leading.
pick up the phone to speak to
But that's
me,
fine.
I'd be happy to speak to you by phone. I'd be happy to meet with you to discuss any questions that you have. But I just don't think it's fair for you to make some claim that somehow information is being withheld from you.
To get information, I typically have to do a records request or sue in court of claims, so that's fine.
Anyway, let's
But
hear
anyway,
what
Ms. Nicodemus, thank you for coming. You had an opportunity to look at this and the site and the drainage and all that. I did notice on some of the maps there's a wetland or call out of wetlands around this. Is there any concern about putting this water there, or with the wetlands being there, is there really not a loss of use if we do allow them to direct water there that we could use for the parkland?
So there are wetlands. If you go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife wetland mapper, you will see wetlands and ponds. So wet ponds and blue line streams are all noted on there, so anybody can find that information. We also require, when plans are put through, that any wetland delineations are done. So sometimes it's on Fish and Wildlife's or USGS maps. Stream stats is another useful tool that we utilize. But they might not be on there. You know, it doesn't mean that there's no wetland. It just means that it wasn't mapped when those maps were done. So we require their engineering to do the environmental and find wetlands or areas that could possibly be a wetland and delineate that, tell us what it is when they submit their plans. So on this property, it was in early 2022, the preliminary plans were approved. All of that property that's on those plans were, including the park property, was a part of the Royals property. So when their engineers and that went through the design for the stormwater, it was approved and signed. This is prior to me. I had to ask Jared Nurr, our county engineer. So the normal flow, you can't change, federal and state law says you can't change the flow of stormwater. If it's the natural flow, it's gotta go in that way. So on that detention basin, the pond that's there, that's going to be expanded for a detention basin, It's at natural overflow currently comes down along one of the wetlands on, which is now your property. If they were to put that 100-year requirement, which is required, so when it spills over, they're supposed to control that and have a site for it, over where it naturally goes, that stormwater would then go into that wetland and in the stream, which is not what the EPA would like to see. So when they designed the plans, they were required to move it over a bit from that, and so it would flow in between those two wetlands, the wet pond and the wetland. So it's still flowing in the same direction, heading toward the same stream. Another requirement that they had to meet was to slow the flow, right? So currently that pond exists, and when it overflows from a 100-year rain event, large amounts of water comes down through that area, which is why you have an ongoing wetland, and into the floodplain of that stream. With the design, which it looks, when you see it, it looks wider. The width of that overflow, and then the concrete matting that they're putting in, that will eventually grow grass.
Yes.
It's wider, and it's put in to slow that flood water down. So when it's coming into your park from that pond, it's going to come down that hill slower. It's going to go in the channel, the grass is going to absorb, more of it will percolate down. The whole point is to help the flooding downstream. So that's what that was designed for. This was all approved to not allow the, again, I don't know why this wasn't put in when the property changed hands, and there was an overflow and that was going to be a part of this, or that property was saved and kept with the Royals property. I don't know, I wasn't a part of that discussion. But in the stage that you're in, you're at final construction, that is already through the process. That means back in February of 2022, if there was not going to be a approval of this easement, it should have been brought forth then to the county engineers and Lincoln County Planning. The TRC is represented by soil and water, planning, the engineers, any sewer districts, fire districts, your zoning, everyone is represented in that. So there was no contingency, there's no remarks in the records. I looked at everything I could find, so no one had brought up a problem with that 100-year.
So you're saying everybody pretty much overlooked it?
Yeah, they
including us.
But yeah, they were that would be the ones that would bring it up. So if it wasn't something, again, they owned the property at that point in time.
Right.
So the plan was approved even through your zoning.
Well, they owned it, but we had a purchase agreement for that property back in 21.
Okay.
The prior board instituted it, so I think it was in escrow at the time, but I think it was delineated where that property line was going to be. So that was I guess I'm just concerned about, are we losing land that is usable for the park? And two, now knowing that maybe our township, the zoning, did not catch this earlier, along with everybody else, to inform us.
Well, the engineer's office, when Jared and county planning said, when those preliminary plans came, even if it was in escrow, the plan showed that the property at that time belonged to the people that were developing Royals Farm. So it wouldn't have been brought up at the preliminary, because when the plans were submitted for review, it still showed that.
But the township would know where that boundary was.
Well, yes,
It
and they would have been the
it was a
only
mistake
ones.
maybe, or an oversight.
Exactly.
Okay.
It is an oversight that you should really take into consideration. So that was one of the things that Nita and I talked about with a couple of different developments, is that in our help, because we're partners with you, we would let you know that you should really look at easements prior to the preliminary plan and design, it should go to the board, your trustees, for approval prior to that, so that we don't have this issue in the future. You really need to make sure you're aware, especially large developments, and what those requirements are. What we are doing to make sure that we protect Etna Township, because that's who our partners are,
Yes.
is in your operation and maintenance agreement with Royals or any other development. We require in Licking County a operation and maintenance agreement, which is why this was brought to the attention of the easement meeting, and the easement. And this is all will be noted that they have to maintain it, any problems with it. This goes before the county commissioners, and they go into an agreement with them for this operation and maintenance and the as-built drawings for the whole design, including this easement where the water's going. And once that agreement is written, it is recorded with the deed. So no matter who owns the property, whether it be a homeowners association or even individual, say the homeowners association dissolves,
It goes with
those
the property.
property owners will still have to pay for that. The county commissioners can hire someone, and they can make it all go on to county engineers, and then everyone will be assessed to maintain that.
Are you talking about putting this on a ditch petition?
If they didn't maintain it.
If they didn't maintain it.
If they didn't
So it wouldn't be
maintain it.
the township's
The
responsibility?
township would not have
Gotcha.
responsibility
Gotcha.
to maintain it.
Yes.
And that's there's another development needed, that there's a pond going to be built, a detention basin. on
Drayton Hall.
That's right, part of Drayton Hall.
Drayton Hall. And that too, we asked during our review of the plans, that they have an easement, that they add this as their responsibility in that development to maintain it, and it get recorded, and their agreement will be with the county commissioners.
Now, who pays into that ditch petition to maintain? Is it just
Well,
the property owners there, or the township wouldn't be responsible for that, would it? Or is that outside of your realm?
The detention basins and the overflows for those is only if they don't maintain.
Right.
So we haven't had any of those go through a process where the commissioners had to. We have an obligation with your MPD's permit to inspect those once every 5 years. And what we're inspecting is, are they maintaining it? They're supposed to do inspections and maintain it every year. We look at those records, then we look at it and see. If they're not maintaining it, we are to take that to you and then to the county commissioners to what to do about it. You would have the violation authority to go, you're not maintaining this, because it's your permit. It's not just the county commissioner's permit, it's your permit. So you would have the authority to tell them to maintain it. If they don't do it, the county commissioners will come in and they'll hire someone to maintain it.
And then I had a question about the access to maintain it. Maybe you might be more apt to answer that, but is that going to be through the MH side, not through the park side, right?
It'll
be through the development side.
Okay, that's why I just want to make sure that you're not going to then ask for access through, because I don't know what we're
No,
doing.
we require it to be through their development,
Okay.
because we need to check their whole stormwater system.
Because I know the plan is just for a little walking path around there, and I wasn't sure if that's suitable for maintenance or anything like
The
that.
EPA wanted according to Jared, the EPA wanted the spillover to be moved a bit, so that stormwater would come between and not affect those two, the wet pond or the wetland on your property.
Yeah.
So that they could be maintained.
I think I've got most of my questions answered, because I was a firm no prior to learning that this process went through everybody, and that's really when it should have been brought up at that time. And I think we had some culpability on the township side that we didn't bring that up and deal with it at that time. So I
And
appreciate
Jared
it.
and county planning stated that if you guys have any, 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 if you guys have opposition to any of these designs. If you let them know too, they will make sure to put those comments in prior to it going to the next stages.
Okay.
We're not gonna approve it without Etna Township's approval.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we weren't giving up anything of value just for the sole, convenience of the developer.
No
Not, you're in it for profit, and that we got to watch our land and stuff, our residents. But I appreciate it.
Federal and state law requires that you can't change the natural flow. So since the natural flow is onto that property and to the stream, it can't be changed. It just can be modified to make sure it doesn't.
So you're saying if we couldn't make them block it and hold it on there, because that would be a change then, and that's one thing okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
I would just like to point out that the township did not sign off on the preliminary plans. That the preliminary plans are signed, but they're not signed by the township. So I don't want you to think that somehow something was mishandled by the township. I think
Well, I just think back when
the process
the earlier
for how
plan.
it happened, that at the time we didn't own the property, the spillway was on their property, and so. So I just want to point that out, that the township did not sign off on the preliminary plan. So when it came around to the final plans, then we said we can't sign off on this because we don't have an easement.
Right, but this is where I say that more information to the board about this stuff for our review, because that could be pointed out, but the preliminary plans were reviewed, I believe, and that they were involved with the park, knew the boundaries, and this is the kind of stuff that should be brought up and dealt with early on. So we're not doing this because, again, I was a hard no if it was only for the benefit of the developer. But with that in mind, I think I understand, and if we're culpable, we're culpable, and I don't think they should pay the price because of any of that.
I'm just pointing out that I'm not sure the word culpable is the correct description of the township's involvement in this.
Well,
that's all.
We were aware of the boundaries. The property was in escrow. Boundaries were already set. That was by the prior board in 21, and anything that was done after that was with Ms. McKee's knowledge. So I think we are at some point, if we didn't realize that, because there should be some coordination with the zoning and park committee and all that, and that's why we need to share information so we can handle these kind of things. But thank you.
I had questions about the whole thing. No, basically for this gentleman here. So I guess I've seen there's the current way that the pond is drained through an overflow piece of pipe, right?
Correct.
There, and then it has its own little overflow area in case that pipe can't handle it, goes over this other side, right? And then there's this plan, and then I've even seen a third plan. So, I hear McNevis say that it should go in the same place it was going. The new plan shows it going to a different place. And the third plan shows it even worse. So, I guess, which plan are you guys looking at? So, can you tell me which one it is? Does it have a 12-inch tile all the way to the creek? Is that the current plan? Or is there a 15-inch tile that would be on the right-hand side of the proposed area? And then, you guys can answer that for me? I've seen too many different versions of it. I've walked that part, I spent over an hour walking around back here to figure out flows and different things. And so, I know exactly what we're looking at.
Our engineer.
Eli Town, the engineer on the project. So the current plan is for the pond to outlet through a 15-inch pipe, not quite all the way down to the stream, but within the easement that's been portrayed.
Which is like 100-some feet, correct?
As far as pipe length?
As far as from the creek, it's going to let out 100-some foot from the creek, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it's letting out as you're looking up the hill where you guys want to put the thing. It's on the left-hand side of that, correct?
Yeah.
That is the latest one I've seen yet.
Yes.
That is not the one that was approved initially back in first part of 2022, was it?
Uh,
That I
plan-
have signatures of?
The plan that was approved with preliminary plan showed a 12-inch pipe,
Coming down the left or the right-hand side, correct?
similar area that we have it, just extended further,
All the way to the creek, correct?
through the wetland and,
And the pipe's on the other side.
Yeah, it's on the right-hand side of this thing.
Is the pipe buried or is it exposed?
the pipe will be buried. Just,
It's a
Exposed
typical
to these,
riser into the
just-
pond that
there'll be,
overflows into.
I just didn't know
There'll be
once
a-
it got away if it was above
Oh, it's,
grade or
yeah, it
below.
should be buried all the way, which will be, it's a ditch type thing, basically. That goes through our thing. So we're looking at the third way that it is, not the current way, not the way it was approved, but this third way, correct? Okay, so what happens when the water flows out of that 15-inch pipe? Where does it go? So this is anytime we get any kind of water into the pond, it's going to flow into that pipe, correct?
correct.
And where's
So,
all that water go to?
when it rains, basin fills up and there's an outlet structure associated with that basin that treats the water for quantity and quality, and releases through that pipe, at a much slower rate than the existing flows would be, today. And that's just through, Licking County's, standards. We're held to a critical storm, which it means that we need to hold back, in this case, the 25-year storm event back to the 1-year existing storm event. So it's drastically reduced flow rates. We're holding all that water back into the basin. It's releasing much slower. And then once it comes out of that pipe, we have rock channel protection there to help dissipate the flows even more, to help protect erosion down
Well,
there.
you're talking about, there's pond flow. To me, and that's pond flow is flow that goes into the pipe once it gets full.
Yep.
Right? And then there's overflow or storm or once a year, whatever you want to call it, secondary. And the secondary is what's come down through those
So
perforated, I got a picture of them.
the pond is designed to handle the 100-year storm event through that pipe and outlet structure. The spillway is only for anything above a 100-year storm event, with that spillway being gauged, which is not as often as rain, storm, or anything along those lines.
So you're
In this
saying,
case, the
Likely
spillway
it'll
is
never
basically
be-
an emergency spillway.
right, yeah, I understand that. So the problem I have more is with the pipe thing, not you guys are talking about the cements in it, but this pipe just lets out the overflows of water, which you have all kinds of storm sewers from all this runoff, right, into that pond. So when it rains, all that water from the streets will come to that pond, it's gonna fill up that pond at some point, and it's gonna flood out over into the pipe that goes out, which is a 15-inch pipe, and it's gonna dump right out in the middle of the yard or the wetlands or whatever. It doesn't dump directly into the creek. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's following the natural direction of the existing conditions, headed down, everything's flowing down to that stream.
Okay.
And just for example, the 100-year flow rate that we're allowed to release from this basin from Licking County standards from the stormwater design manual, I believe is 40 CFS, and we will be releasing only 7 CFS. And I have it over there. The existing conditions is much more than 40 CFS.
Okay. Well, so you're still gonna dump a whole bunch of water out there. Basically, anything that's up in the street's gonna dump out into that swamp area, not into the stream, correct?
I mean, not immediately out of the pipe into the stream.
So currently there is a drain pipe in that pond, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. And it comes out right there where that finger comes up, where that low spot, the flood zone comes up to the pond. And it's quite the drop off the side of the pond there. So there's already established flow of water into that spot right there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so why would we put it back in there?
Following the preliminary plan that was approved, the initial intent and design was to release in a way that we're not disturbing wetlands and streams and with grading activities. And so the wetland in that area, it's all one wetland from where the outlet is now. It's all connected.
But where the outlet is now, there is a creek bed there. It's a dry creek bed at this point. As long as the water's coming out, it becomes a dry creek bed. And that's what there is currently right now.
We're proposing the outlet. It's still recharging that wetland in the area, and the groundwater aquifer is
Recharging is flooding it? Well, I think it's flooding it.
Well, there's water to be a wetland.
Because I expected to walk back.
And it's all connected underground.
Well, no, but you're letting it out on the ground, not in the stream. You're letting it out into a wetland, not a stream, correct?
They're one and the same.
Well, they're not the same. There's a trench in the ground where water flows through it.
Linda might be
Yeah,
better.
help me.
I'm not an environmentalist. I apologize.
I just don't understand.
Oh, why they're moving it?
Yeah, when they're moving, it's already established. It's already established.
All right, so with stormwater, for one, with stormwater, they're required to hold more water.
I understand.
Okay,
the problem.
so there's an orifice in their head wall. So the outlet structure has an orifice for that pipe. An orifice is a plate that restricts amount of water, so that, yeah, I know, because we've talked about that. So that the pollutants won't get into the rivers and streams, so that everything in that detention basin, retention pond, will stay in the retention pond. Coming down where it's at, any floatables are at top, and that release rate and what they've designed will be slower. Where you've got the pond at currently, it's already an existing pond, the outlet structure is just a straight pipe. So the pond is going to keep as much water as that overflow pipe will allow. As where detention, that's going to be closed off. All right, so that will no longer, when this is constructed, you're looking at the plans, it's closed off. It's to protect that wetland and there's like a little wetland. You can't see it on these plans because it's on your property. But you can see it actually right here.
I know exactly where it is.
It's right next to it.
Look, I got this thing
Right,
here.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
I know
you
exactly. And that thing is right there. And there's a creek bed right there that flows over here.
Right, but that'll be closed off.
And here's the creek here, right? And they want, and your plan doesn't show it, but.
Right here, it will be the.
Yeah, so they want to take, right, there's the overflow, and here's their pipe from there clear to the creek on this plan. Their proposed plan is to ride it from here and just dump it right there.
And to stop here, because that's too close to the wetland. Okay,
Well, it
this
dumps
here
out the
is
bottom.
too, yeah,
I
it's
saw the
going
stakes.
straight into
They
the
already
stream.
stayed, yeah.
We won't allow that.
There's no stream.
Water quality is important to us.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so soil and water is different than
So
a
you
lot
wanted
of other
to,
things.
to kind of filter a little bit even before it reaches the
Before it
stream.
ever hits that stream.
So
Once it hits the stream.
So you
it's
don't
gonna
want
flow.
a pipe extended to the stream?
No.
Okay, so that's why they can't do it. You're
We
saying,
don't-
why can't you just connect it to the
We
stream?
don't want it to
the
go
creek?
straight in the stream. We want
And they're
it to
saying
come
they
out.
can't because
Plus-
they need it to filter.
Plus, then we can monitor it better. We can make sure by testing it that there's no pollutants
Okay,
getting into the
okay.
streams.
Well,
We need water quality.
what I'm
And-
gonna say this is that's fine, but there's ground there that is a little swampy, but it's firm. I mean, it was firm when I was down there, and there was no stream beds or anything in that area. So the water's gonna tend to go the path of least resistance, and it's all gonna go that direction. I'm pretty soon you're gonna end up with a stream bed there. As much water's gonna flow out of that pond, believe me, I know about water flowing out of ponds.
Exactly.
You know exactly where I live, and you know
That's
what,
exactly where it's gonna go. It's
Yeah.
gonna go to that stream.
it's gonna go right
But
to it.
putting this channel in with the matting that they've put in for the overflow.
I'm not
For
talking-
one, I know, just let me,
Okay.
just one moment. That's to help water percolate and stay as slow as it can to lessen the impact of a 100-year rain event.
Right.
So this, developing and changing this is already gonna help flooding. One, in creating it. The storm pipe, having the water quality device on their outfall, which slows the water down and is meant to hold the pollutant in their pond and not into yours. Not onto your land and not into our rivers and streams. So, when that pipe that they have, if it went straight out to the river, then we wouldn't be able to see if there was any problems. So say we do our stormwater inspection post-development, and we see something on those rocks that they have there, either a slime or a sludge, we can call them, they have to clear that out, they have to figure out what's going on and fix it. If you have it straight to the stream, it could be multiple. For one, it could be diluted by the water and streams that are in the water that's flowing there. And someone could claim that it was another source downstream. Not having it going straight into the stream will help us identify, help Bubba and your parks people see that there's something not right. Easier. But again, this is your choice, but this has already went through, and Nita was right, the preliminary plans were signed by the engineers, the county planning, but that's after a technical review committee that had everybody in there. Now it's at final construction phase, which has already went through all its process through the EPA with the wetland, everything. And because we were looking at the operation and maintenance plan to be finalized, and we're like, where's the easement document for this?
Is that how Tom got discovered?
That,
I wondered how Tom.
so when John was like, I can't sign for an easement, it has to go before the board. I'm like, it hasn't went through the board. It hasn't went through the board. You guys have to verify that and handle those things. But to Jared Nur and county planning and Lincoln County Soil and Water, the EPA, MPDS and NOI has already been approved on this project. To the best of its ability, it meets all of the standards. And moving it to where it was one of EPA's and our concerns. So you said it moved several different times to where it's at now.
Well, the drawing.
The preliminary plans, I wasn't here at that point. I started in September. The preliminary plans are there. It's like, man, that's right into that wetland. And I am very passionate about wetlands and water. If you haven't figured that out yet, that's who I am. And protecting your park and your property, I am a big proponent of. I won't ever let you guys have to deal with that as long as I'm here. I'll make sure that you understand we have worked really well together since we actually have a team now. We had one urban tech before trying to do all the plan reviews and all the inspections. Now we have a team, so we can better service you.
And I think the main point is we can't stop that flow having built it. There's been a flow, so to mitigate it,
well, this is what it's flow. It's the whole flow area they're proposing. This goes into us.
Well, they're moving the one pipe to this area,
They're
right?
moving the whole thing.
Right, but they're moving flow.
Yeah, they're moving the whole flow.
Right.
And
So we're going to
saying
have flow.
that they're not moving, but they really are moving it quite a bit.
It is moving.
Yeah.
You are right, it's
Right.
moving, but it's moving to be away from the two wetlands to not adversely affect in any way. If it does break down, our plan is, please move this over so it doesn't harm these two public waterways now, because they're yours, so they belong to your public. So we don't want the wetland or the wet pond on your property affected. If you put it in the middle and you don't run it to the stream, it could be monitored better. So
ultimately, we're trying to protect the existing water features and waterways as much as possible.
And as far as the maintenance plan and all those requirements, are they within this easement? With
the easement will be a part of that document.
but is it enough to protect, to ensure that it's at the highest level, to ensure that there's enforcement mechanisms and that?
Yeah, it went through a process through the prosecutor's office to ensure that the rights of the township were protected. And unless I'm mistaken, I'd have to look, I believe it specifically references the operation,
The operation and maintenance, you
Maintenance,
need that in
yeah.
your easement. You need to
Yeah,
make sure
it
it's
references.
referenced, that they have to maintain it. And if this is all going through, like I said, the county commissioners, and be recorded. But not until after it's we've already reviewed the operation and maintenance manual that they have. But we don't go through the process till after it's constructed, and we make sure we have the as-built drawings and that it still matches before final approval. So if something isn't in there that needs to be, or something ends up changing in this process, we catch it on that end.
I just want to make sure there's enough
yeah,
enforcement.
so at the top of page 2 of the easement, it specifically references grantee is responsible for all costs associated with maintaining the improvement, including all requirements of the operation and maintenance manual, Royals Farm Phase 2, Licking County, Ohio. That's in paragraph 2.
So we'll just have to ensure
At
the
the top
maintenance
of page
manual is sufficient.
I'm
It
sorry.
is currently sufficient for what they've designed.
Okay.
So what they've designed, Joe Jarvis in our office has already reviewed it, and it meets the criteria that the EPA has, the standard of.
I just want to make sure, because I know it's different, but like the Refugee Road project with the lift station, it's been 80 days for quite a while. Typically there's some enforcement stuff that you could put in contracts, and that's where I think we got to ensure that it's not just the minimum standard, that there is, you have a right to, a duty to maintain it, but what are the consequences if you don't? What's the timelines if you don't? Can they drag it on for a year? Can they drag it? Will that be in the maintenance manuals and that?
About how the maintenance is.
Of how, like, timelines, if there is an issue that within 60 days, 90 days, so it isn't going.
It has to be in there.
Okay.
They have to, plus the EPA requires those operation and maintenance agreements when we find, even if there's properties that we do not have operation maintenance manuals for. It wasn't until the 2018 stormwater permit that required operation and maintenance manuals because of problems like this.
Before, okay.
But they're still required to maintain them. So we have enforcement measurements that we're going to these places where they have stormwater, notifying them they have stormwater, notifying them of what they need to do to maintain it and whose responsibilities they are. And if they don't bring it up to standard, then the county enforcement officer will write them up.
So this outlet of the drain pipe, not the drain field, drain pipe, not the foot, it has a big head on it, right?
The outlet is big, but the orifice on the inside it's like a plate.
Well, no,
like,
I've seen them, I know that. But I'm just saying, so now I've got this big concrete structure in the middle of the wetlands area, correct?
not in the middle of the wetland, it's in between the wetlands. It's in your park, yes, but it's not in the wetland.
Where's it at? Because that's all wetland right down there.
It's, you still have your plan right there?
I think it's,
There's
It's all
delineated
wetland.
wetlands that are
It's all
certain
wetland.
sizes, but no, it's not in a wetland.
So they can't farm it because it's so mushy back there. You can see where the big trenches where the tractors sunk.
did the park consultant do any site surveys of where everything
It
is?
stops right here, right? So
I sent you the drawing
all
that had
way back
been
through
made
here.
by the park
it's all
engineer.
right down through here.
Indicating
That's
where
flood.
all wetlands were in that?
That's flood.
Was that included in that?
Well, I
What's
think
the
he
flood zone? Which
used
one's the flood
the wetland
What color is
surveys
it
that are
on?
already available.
But she was saying not all
Flood zone?
wetlands are necessarily indicated. That's where you have to do a wetland survey.
Correct. A delineation of a
A
wetland.
delineation of wetlands,
You're
because you
saying
can't just
green
go
is
by
wetlands
wetlands.
and the blue is
So that
flood
hasn't
zone.
been
I
done.
haven't seen that, no.
Because this is where I see it. It's this mess right over here, and we're dumping the water right into it, pretty much.
It is a wet area, the whole area in between that. That's where the stormwater normally goes. So even though it is marshy and wet a lot, doesn't mean that it's the actual what has been determined to be the wetland itself. That's protected. So areas surrounding wetlands, we require 25-foot buffer for that reason. So those buffers that will be around those wetlands, this this outlet needed to be 25 foot away from those, and it should be 25 to 50 foot away from a stream. So that's why we didn't want the pipe to be there. If you look at regulations, a lot of people, say a long time ago, stormwater was managed through the county engineer's office. Engineers are all about water quantity, right? They're not about water quality. This got moved to soil and water because soil and water is all about water quality, not just quantity, but the quality of water, our rivers and our streams and our environment. So the county commissioners felt that this was a better fit to help our environment, to help our community, is for soil and water to take ownership and management of the county stormwater permit. At any point in time, this is your permit also. But as trustees, you can have your own permit. You're required to have a permit. You can either be on our permit and share in that, or you can have your own permit. North Township has their own, Heath, Pataskala, they all have their own permit. You still have to meet the same requirements. But ours is, with it being related to soil and water, it's going to meet a higher standard than what it has to meet. Go to Heath, go to Pataskala, and see what's going into the rivers and streams from their stormwater. Because they're only dealing with quantity. They're not dealing with quality. And that's sad.
But, so has this been approved by the county?
We were waiting signatures based on.
You have to have an easement. We cannot sign off anything until the trustees
But
decide whether there's an easement.
You moved it from this plan that was approved in the county, correct?
That was a preliminary plan. So once they do a preliminary plan, they have to meet certain criteria. By the time they come to us with the construction standards, they have to meet a larger criteria. They have to have their calculations for how that stormwater is going to be held, how long it's going to be, which is a huge stormwater report.
So they haven't approved this one, what you're saying?
No, everybody's looked at it and everybody's agreed that it meets the criteria. The only thing we're waiting on is whether you're going to approve an easement or not. If you do not grant an easement, then these plans are dead in the water, and they'll have to go back through county planning and resubmit new plans and find a way to redesign it. It's still, the water is still going to make its way into that stream and that overflow. But this time, if they come in and say they get rid of two, I'm just thinking about the plans that you have in your hands. So they have like two lots. Yeah. Let me explain this. So right here is the current overflow, right? This is where the water's going.
Right.
So if they do this over here, where it's at, okay, then say they even get rid of this lot here. It's still going to go here, but now it's going to go into the wetland. This is a designated wetland. So this little area right there, that's an existing pond, has been determined by Fish and Wildlife and by the EPA as a wetland. So that's where that water is going to go. That's not really where we would like it to go, which is why we would rather it move over to go in between.
And this is not a wetland?
No, that's a floodplain. This is floodplain right here.
Did you not say the green was wetland?
No, the wetlands are over here, the ponds.
I think that's showing the 100-year floodplain.
This is the 100-year floodplain with the dots. Yeah.
This was.
That's the floodway.
That's the green delineated wetland that is shown all the way up through here. So the whole stream is in the wetland, but it also has a floodplain associated with it.
Which plan was this one from? This was what did you say?
It's from the construction plans that are awaiting approval.
So
I just added color to it so we can see, so we can point and see and show.
The outfall and outlet and stream is already going into the wetland of the stream.
Right.
Having the buffer area, which the red shows the 25-foot buffer, This is even further back from that, and the outlet structure is out of that. So they're not, even the natural flow is going their way anyways. You can't change the natural flow. This is taking it so it's, yes, it's still, even if it came here, it's up here into a wetland that comes closer, which is the outlet channel. This is going in between,
So it's coming in and
yes,
going this
to
way.
try to protect these areas.
So wouldn't it come down through here and go this way too?
That's where it would go.
Or if
it
you
was
flood here,
redesigned.
then it'll flood this way and go up in this way, right? If it's coming in here, then it's gonna flow this way and go right into this.
Right, but look, you see the red line here?
Yeah.
So if this is a delineated wetland, and this is the natural way it's flowing,
Right. 'Cause
if they put their
drainage right there.
natural 100-year floodplain right here, it's going directly into it. It's not even having time to percolate in, to possibly absorb, it's just going to
Let's
run.
back up, because I'm not talking about this as much as I'm talking about this problem.
And it's stopping right here, which is well away
Right.
from the.
And that's what I have a problem with. And I'll tell you why, anytime you run water in the same spot, every time, you're gonna get trenching.
And now have to.
Right?
Yes.
But it's gonna find its way over here through a trench.
This here is stone.
So now you're gonna put
Large
just,
amount of root rep, to dissipate the velocity coming out of there and minimize.
so now we're gonna put a hole, so now you wanna put a stone area there too?
Over to, up to the
It's
buffer.
still in a better place, that was our argument. For one, keeping that 25-foot buffer away from a wetland and
reason
away from the stream, it's our goal. We can't force them to change the direction of the water. The direction of the water overflows to that stream. So either it's gonna overflow right into the wet pond and the wetland, or it's gonna buffer out and slowly, hopefully percolate any pollutants onto that easement and not into the stream. That was the best option that anyone in Lincoln County Planning could come up with to help water quality. It was the only
I don't know,
best solution.
I've lived it for a number of years, a lot of years I've lived it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, that is gonna create a path right through there. That particular area of our park, it's on a big hill up to the pond, it's a beautiful low area. And now we're gonna have this in the middle of it, we're gonna have a pipe coming down with a big cement header there with all this rip wrap
How big is
around
that
there.
line?
I just, 15, I just think it ruins what is a very beautiful part of the park when there's other ways to go in there. I think you're going up with a trench through here anyways. Because that's just the way water works. When you have that much, and I understand that the drain part, how it works, and that's good design. Pond goes down slowly until it hits the lower level, then it's got plenty of time to fill up. I understand that, but some of the rains we've had, it's gonna fill up and there's gonna be a lot of water coming out of the pipe eventually. But, so, that's, I don't know.
This is absolutely your decision, you
Yes.
know that. I mean, it's not, we can do our due diligence on the best management
No, I
and
understand,
the
but
best
I appreciate
practices.
your
And
insight on it.
I understand. But what I'm trying to say is, you're the vote. You're the representative of the people and your park. I mean, you could possibly ask them to put a feature around it that's maybe not so big pipe facing there.
You know,
But that really should have been done already before we got there. But we're at an easement document. We've got an engineer and a designer right here. And you could put some features around it that would hopefully not make it look so awkward if that's
There's
your.
already established flow over here anyways, from fire pond outlet there anyways. So why not use what's already around there instead of recreating a new one? And it just keeps swinging it into the park even farther.
She was saying because you want to filter that, you don't want a direct injection. Because right now, the water that's coming out is just from the farm. Now you're gonna have, so that she wants any pollutants, anything that will retain in that, and it's a way to do that. But my question on that, 15-inch pipe with riprap in that, are there any other, like, tile mats, or do you need riprap, or is there anything that would be aesthetically more pleasing? To his question.
We could use the Tide concrete matting, same as the spillway, to help minimize the velocity out of there. It's just an extra way to protect and to minimize.
I would
This
think
what
you
you're,
would need more.
can I get you to look at this? Is this what you're proposing?
Yes.
That's in the, yeah, I've seen that.
That's what it looks like when installed, but
Yeah.
grass does grow through
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, and then the grass
and,
eventually grows over, you don't even notice.
And once it's established,
Wet one.
you won't even, you allow grass
And the
through it.
maintenance of it, is it gonna be mowed, or is it gonna be, because I've seen some inlet.
On a specific supplier of it, Tide Flex, they advertise that commercial mowers can go right over top of it, no problem. And that's,
Those parts
Now,
of
this is
performance,
the
can you let it
rock
grow?
channel.
you can let it
The
grow.
one
Yeah,
with
see
the
what I was
matting.
talking about?
Yes.
If you guys wanna know what that looks like, we have that rock matting at our office.
It's on
So-
664 down there,
Well,
south
got it down to
256.
you can plant additional
Well, they do,
plantings.
well, I know
That's my
we
picture.
put it in so that we could show people what the best management practice
Live.
instead of
I just
having the
wanted
rocks.
to discharge it with 15 inch if there was
And it could be
something
mowed,
that
and we
you're
keep
concerned
like
about.
our,
And I'll get
ag,
that
um,
riprap with that
drills
slow
and
stuff down.
tillers on it in the summertime that farmers come and get and borrow.
Not really.
We
And
can
so, but it's all grassy, it's all
kind of
mowed.
You don't even know, so you still mow
No,
it.
it's just
like-
reinforced, but you can come and look at it. So that it, and having the grass filter anything that's over, once it overflows, that's the biggest thing. You know, because if there's pollutants that are floating on the top, so the outfall structure's down in, that's only releasing the cleaner water. When a rain event happens everywhere, if it's a rain event and it's flooding your streets, all the dirt and brine from your streets are going straight into the river. So having them put a mat or a grassy area, the grass will filter it, and it will also cool it down. So it slows it down and it cools it down. One of my biggest peeves is filling in a median on a roadway and putting pipe in it, and you see it done all the time for an extra lane of traffic. So you're sending the water dirtier, hotter, and faster to a stream just to kill your fish and your wildlife. And they do it, they're doing it right now in New Albany to widen 161 for new development. It's the saddest thing, what we're doing to our environment. So I am happy that you're concerned about it. I think that that's important. I think people need to care about what's happening on their property, on the rivers and streams. If we don't, who is?
What's the pleasure of the board?
I mean, I'd make a motion to approve the easement as presented.
I'll second. Discussion, we need to do
Or
it.
is this as presented in which plan? This plan right here, I don't know if they got last one.
This easement, the actual easement, and it delineates in here, it's got a map.
Mhm.
Again, I think a lot of this should have been caught at the TRC, and maybe we should make a note on that.
So they're giving the pipe as part of it, okay, I see, okay.
And I'm, with having that maintenance manual, I think I'm more comfortable with it too.
Did you actually go out and walk that car?
I did not get a chance to, when I did the asphalt machine for blocking it, I didn't think they wanted me to drive through the three ruts.
Do you have any more information, these things that you wanted to share?
Would you like this back?
Because I know we worked with.
I think if there was an opportunity, if we could have them stop all the water, maybe it'd be different, but if we can't, we gotta allow some. I would rather direct it where it's filtered, where it protects the stream, and hey, maybe there's a suggestion for mud volleyball.
I haven't seen that as a suggestion on our survey yet. You know, I know in the past, the board has granted easements that have, you know, like to AP, for instance, there was a cost, there was a cost associated with the easement itself. There was a cash payment and an in-kind payment made for the easement. That's just how the board has handled it in the past.
Did you hear what she was saying, Mrs.
About
Sanders?
cash payment and that?
Yeah, about the,
I'm just saying in the past, when AAP was granted an easement on the park property, that the board, there was a cash payment in exchange for that easement and an in-kind payment as well with the box.
Was there any discussion about that? It was brought up last time. I don't know if you had any discussion.
There's not been any discussion from the developer. There's not been any suggestion from the developer to make any kind of a cash payment.
How big was the easement for AEP? Because this is like 0.65.
it's a little smaller than AAP, but AAP also gave us access to it.
I think the AEP easement was 0.84 acres. And this, I believe, is 0.183 acres.
Well, again, I think if we handle this properly from the beginning, maybe we could kind of talk about that, but at this stage, and they did sell us the parkland, I mean, we did pay for it.
We did pay for it, yes. It was not a donation.
Correct.
Which was something that was said. And then the pump station was something between Southwest Licking and Water, or Etna Township.
Well, I think it benefits us slightly that it's filtered water. It's protecting our property. Would you agree, Linda?
It's protecting that wetland.
The wetland
stream
is
area,
our property.
and having it back and not directly into it. So that was the best we could do.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move over to the Pike Street Intergovernment Agreement, which is called the IGA. Excuse me. I move to approve the amendment of the Pike Street Intergovernment Agreement 2020-01 between Etna Township and the Licking County Transportation Improvement District dated December 2023 as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion please.
The only thing, again, I'm concerned that we had to modify this because that 550-foot section wasn't included. These are the kind of things that we need to ensure that we do properly, so we don't get to this point, because we could have included this with the Morpsey grant request. That's possibly cost us $600,000.
That's not true. I always have to say something that's not true.
It's very much true.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, we go ahead and move over to our 2024 draft budget. I move resolution 23-12-19-02 to adopt permanent appropriation for fiscal year 2024 as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I want to go into discussion. There were some things that I wanted to ask about on there. There was a couple things under the 5-year. That was was missing. I could not find it in the 5-year, which is account number 1,110-131-000. That's an account moving over to account 1000110-190-001. I could not find that.
Are you talking about the second account?
Yes, please, yes. I couldn't find it under the 5-year. Yeah, the second account number, 190-001.
Didn't we talk about this before, that you just didn't put it in the 5-year?
It's a sub-account of the
No,
one.
she didn't. I'm sorry, Julie, what you say?
Sorry. Okay, so it's a sub-account of the 1,110-190 and 4 zeros. There's a sub-account there that's not showing.
Yes, I noticed that.
And those sub-accounts are just more detailed of the parent account that you're seeing. So,
Well, I would, I'm not in favor of passing a permanent appropriation for fiscal 2024 as presented.
Why?
I just said that. I'm just not in favor for it.
the number is there.
I'm just not in favor for it.
Well, we need a budget.
Yeah, we do, first of the year. We'll be back in here on January 2nd.
Well, we can't,
We can just modify this line at the one at the end, if you like. It's the same thing.
there's top line accounts and then child accounts underneath it. I mean, you've had this for how long? Why wasn't this brought up before?
Do you have any other questions?
Or Mr. Johnson?
I put the figures on the budget that I'm not even gonna be here for, so I don't know why approving any of it, because for that reason, that's.
Well, you're approving everything else. You're hiring people that are gonna be here, why didn't you put that up? We have a duty to do this, and we have to go into the new year with the budget. We can't, insurance is gonna be coming out, 1/1. We're not gonna have a budget, so we're gonna go into, again, appropriating funds without appropriations approved. We can't do that. And there's no reason why we don't approve. Budgets can be amended at any time, and typically throughout a year, they are.
Exactly.
And every expenditure, every budgeted item has to be approved. So this isn't saying, yes, it's gonna be approved, or if Ms. McKee thinks that something else needs to increase or decrease, we can do that at the first of the year, but I believe we need to pass a budget. Most other entities do it in the beginning of December, so that you have it for the first of the year, because if we do it on the 2nd, Julie's got a lot of work to get input to be able to pay those things. It makes no sense not to pass the budget, because it can be easily amended.
It can be easily passed too, at the first meeting, right? You don't think it's gonna pass the first meeting?
But you already have appropriations that are coming out, and you can't appropriate much, can't spend money without appropriations. So, but those come out 1/1, so we won't have a budget. So that's not
They come out 1/1, they come out on New Year's Day?
yeah.
On the 2nd. and that's
But in
approved,
more,
right?
but it won't be
It
approved
hasn't
yet.
been audited for his personal, and there's not supposed to be any appropriations until it's been approved by the auditor.
So we need it approved to send it.
So you need temporary budget, what you're saying. But, I mean, that's what you're saying, but I've never approved a budget, I don't think, the first part of the year.
It
I mean,
was
until
a
the first of the
prosecutor's
year.
recommendation to do so last year.
The auditor?
No, the prosecutor.
You
I guess
want a
I'm
budget
going-
before you get into that year, because we're going to have to approve it. Every other entity does it, not just, it's sound
We did
fiscal.
it last year, full year.
No,
Okay.
But it was,
They did it the year
but there
before.
was a problem, because we had expenditures.
They we did
without authorization.
I think you did do it.
We did temporary one. We did temporary one in 2020, the first meeting in 2022. Correct? I think that's when we did it.
I mean, what do you think the difference that's gonna happen if you do a permanent appropriations now versus the second? Doing it now gives Julie time to get it into UAN, to get it to the auditor for approval to, why are we delaying for delay's sakes? It makes no
Roll
sense.
call,
And
Ms. Varian.
there was questions before about an
Roll call, Ms.
$80,000
Varian.
input, and that was asked by the administrator. It wasn't the
Roll
fiscal.
call, Ms. Varian.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Ms. McKee?
No. I move to transfer funds as presented. Okay, here we have this transfer of funds. Could I get a second, please? We can go into discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, let's go into discussion.
Transfer funds from.
No, well, she was trying to answer this is within this 190-0001.
That's just
What
Laura's
about it?
salary. And the 001 is just indicated to me that it's Laura's salary.
A sub-account.
It's a sub-account that's at my discretion to, those numbers don't mean anything to an auditor or anybody else, other than me having it more detailed in the budget.
Just a hierarchy of accounts.
So why do we need that much money in there? Do we have money in
Because
there already?
because we needed more money for her salary for the rest of the year.
We didn't approve enough for that either at the beginning,
At
or?
the beginning we didn't, she's had more hours, she's been more full-time, and she has part-time this year. So I just didn't estimate enough for her salary.
So she has one more paycheck that comes out of this,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you have to cover one more paycheck?
Yes.
So why do we need 5,000?
I had to, for both the paychecks in December, I wanted to make sure I had enough, because she also got paid out for vacation time and sick time.
Yeah, because I haven't seen, I was trying to see what was left up there in the book, if you had put this in. I didn't see what was in, I didn't see what was in what was left in the fund at all.
Well, I need $5,000 now, and these are very common transfers.
I understand that, I just didn't see them there. I gave you the 400 last time for the roads. But I still didn't see where we're spending that extra, and now you.
I'm not spending it extra, I was moving it from the general fund to the road fund, there's no
You have to
extra.
cover it something, right?
But it's, some people some townships amend their appropriations every meeting. That, I've rarely done it the entire time I've been here, because it shouldn't be necessary. But if you want Laura to be paid the rest of the year, I need to be able to transfer these funds. There's also a transfer in there to make the Taylor Road payment, which is due January 1st.
Where's that coming from?
From principal payments bonds to
Oh,
Taylor Road payments.
That's different than.
And just because there's a transfer, you could, if it's not 5,000, it could be 50,000. It's not expending that amount. It's just putting it, allocating it to that account. And next year, when there's need, there wouldn't be as much put in there. This thought that just because it's in the account, it's spent is.
It's staying in the general account, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's why it's only a motion. It's just a motion, not.
It has to make sense.
And
Would you say
I had the full salary for Nita appropriated, that's where it's coming from, because I had the full 130 appropriated for Nita, but she didn't work a full year. So I can easily just move it over to Laura's salary and make sure that she can be paid for the rest of the year.
And the Taylor Road, this is the first payment on that, correct?
Yeah.
That's the second payment.
It's the second payment.
Did I have a second on that?
It was Jeff.
I do.
Rosemary.
Probably just, yeah.
Is that?
But it's just, in this funds is just to pay Laura for her vacation?
No.
It's to pay her salary, to make
Salary?
sure I have enough for her salary.
It's $5,000, just Laura?
No, it's just to make sure I have a little bit of a cushion in order to get Laura's salary and benefits paid for the rest of the year.
It's
So
not to the penny.
let's just approve $1,000, that should cover
No, at the time when I did it, I
it.
needed,
$1,000. Got you covered.
No.
I think we should listen to our fiscal officers doing these books. She knows what needs to be paid. And if you put 200,000 in there, it makes no difference because no expenditure is going to be made except one that is approved by the board. She's saying she needs $5,000 to have the cushion in that account to do it. Now, you just approved 2 more hours of holiday pay for it, so that's increasing. I mean,
I did increase it. But Mark, you're always honest about not doing things proper procedure. I don't, and not without our knowledge, I don't know how much is in those funds. I haven't seen anything for.
We've been asking to have a book in there that we're not getting our updates.
The last 5 months are not in there.
we had the opportunity to have direct read-only access to the UAN system to get anything. You guys didn't approve it. We had the opportunity.
It has nothing to do with it.
Both you guys voted no.
It has nothing to do with it.
It has everything.
It has nothing to
If
do
you
with
want to know
keeping
what's
our
in
books
there,
updated
So how do you know
for
how
all of
much
us
is in
to
the
see
fund,
it.
Mark? How do you know how
Okay.
much is in there? Do you know how much is in that fund?
that
Or are you
It
just
doesn't-
trusting her that?
I'm trusting her because even if there's $100,000 in there, and she wants to put another 5,000, it's not material because there's no funds being expended. It's just shuffling it around. It's still there. It could be shuffled out. Could be left in there. It has zero effect except for her bookkeeping and her accounting of it.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? I won't be able to pay Laura the last paycheck if you say no.
Okay, you did it last time.
I'm
so
just
you
saying.
Can't, you can't,
I'm just
you
saying.
You can't feel, you know, you did that last time. We took the signatures away. You did the same thing.
No, I just
Yeah,
am
you
telling
did,
you that I
you
cannot
did.
pay
Yes, you
Laura
did.
if you
Yes,
don't
you
do
did.
the transfer. Or the loan payment. Or the first, let's do the first. Loan payment will be paid.
And that's for a loan that we had no idea we had. $600,000 because there was no certificate of transition.
And we're just talking about the, just the one thing, we're voting on,
Your vote would be for
all three
items.
Okay.
I'll put them in.
We're in the middle of a vote.
yeah, but I want,
She's questioning
I'm
it.
questioning it, and I
List
want to
all three
amend
of
it.
these items.
so I'm not gonna do all 3 items.
Well, we're in the middle of a vote. You can't amend in the middle of a vote.
Well, then I'll take my vote back.
You haven't
You
voted
haven't
yet.
even voted.
You haven't voted yet.
Mr. Johnson?
Can't make this up.
I don't like it. I want Laura to get paid, so. And I don't want the road payment to get paid, so, but if it's up to me, I wouldn't want to also pay more, so I'll vote yes, so those 2 things can happen.
Ms. McKee?
No.
For discussion purposes, I'll list it how I always do on the sheet.
I move resolution 23-12-1903, excuse me, to approve the purchase orders as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion, please.
Yeah, I've seen the order.
And roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to ratify the payment of the bills as shown on the payment listing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call. Discussion, I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes, please. Thank you. Announcements of trustees and comments.
The only thing I'd like to say is wind waste and trash pickup due to the holidays the week of the 25th. And I think January 1st, the trash is going to be delayed a day So I said Tuesday, it's Wednesday. Then I did have a question for the board. This wasn't brought up in anything. Wind waste, the contract is expiring in March. Has anything been done with that? Any communications with them on that matter? Ms. Hanson?
I have not had any communications with Wind Waste I've had other Wind Waste and other trash companies have approached us. It's calendared to begin discussions in January about the pleasure of the board in terms of putting the contract out for bid.
So we're not taking advantage of the contract provision which allows the possible extension of the contract for up to 10% increase?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's on the calendar for January for the board to discuss their pleasure about how they want to proceed.
Okay, but that's after, the contract requires 90 days prior to expiration, which is January 1st, that they be notified if we want to do that. We're not going to have a board meeting until January 2nd, so that's after that date.
No.
Now, a 10% increase may seem like a lot, but reviewing what other trash companies have been bidding in the surrounding entities, their bid prices are much higher. So I would have hoped we would have reached out to Wind Waste and said, we would like to elect this provision, then it's up to them to do it. But to do so, we have to do it by January 1st. We're not going to be here. My question is, why hasn't it been done?
Again, I'll speak up. Mr. Evans, this is the board. You can work with your board. If you would communicate with your board instead of fighting against us, your administrator, work with your administrator. Stop fighting, stop the gotcha moments. That's where you fail. You don't know how to sit and be a trustee. You want to fight, gotcha. Why don't you talk to us? Have a conversation with us. Bring up the information, not the gotcha moment that you have to put out there and think that we don't care about what goes on in this township. We do. Come in and talk to us. But you're fighting. That's all you want to do is fight.
And
you don't want to work with anybody.
Doing due diligence. And again, this is going to cost our township residents money. And this should have been. There was a meeting. I didn't even know what it was about on Monday. All we see is Wind Waste, Sarah, 2 to 4. One would have hoped.
I don't have any idea what you're talking about. There was no meeting on Monday.
See, there's a gotcha moment again. That's
I
what he
just
does.
don't know what you're talking about.
That's what he does.
It was
And
on.
I think you had asked me about it on an email, and I responded back to you that said,
Citizens,
I don't know what you're talking about. There
guys.
was no meeting.
You got to stop the gotcha stuff.
It was on the calendar.
Unprofessional. Never have been.
I could send you the screenshot. But that's the kind of things that, and we don't have a working calendar that I've asked for numerous times.
Mr. Evans, there is a
we're missing these
calendar.
provisions.
There are deadlines on the calendar. If you would ever just pick up the phone and speak to me so that we can have communication that is not asynchronous, I think that it would be helpful to resolving questions that you may have.
Number one, with all the false allegations made, it needs to be in email. I've asked if we had a master calendar, and you stated it's updated on there. That is not a master calendar. So again, between now and the 1st, Wind Waste needs to be contacted. Do I have to do that? Because this is costing our residents money.
There are dates on the master that are not on the master calendar. There are reminders to renew the Wind Waste contract. There are reminders to renew the sheriff. Excuse me?
Mr. Evans.
There is reminders to renew the sheriff contract. There is reminders about board appointments. All of those are on the master calendar.
What Mr. Evans is here doing is, Mr. Evans, what you're doing is you're trying to embarrass this board. You're trying to embarrass our administrator. You have to stop that. No, you're not. No, you're not. What's right is pick up the phone and have a conversation.
I want to thank Jeff for his dedication to this township. I think the fighting needs to stop, and I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And,
I move
and
to
I,
adjourn.
and I want
What did
to,
you say, Mr. Johnson?
don't I have a few minutes?
Okay,
Yeah,
well, I thought we were
Fine.
open.
Yeah, you guys.
Or whatever, for an argument. I want to say thank you to all the citizens that have supported me or had a different opinion with me, but I really appreciate and humbled by the chance to serve the community here.
You did a fabulous job.
I want to congratulate Mr. Burkholder and hope that you will do a great job for this township up here when you're sitting in this chair.
Yes.
Please do.
Thank you.
And with that motion, do you have anything, Roslyn?
I don't. I just want to tell everybody to have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, blessings to everyone and their family, and enjoy your family.
I'll make the final adjournment. We adjourn.
Yay.
Roll call, Ms. Marion.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Yeah.